Hey, this is Trav here, and this podcast relies on the good people who help support this podcast on Patreon, and I'd like to give a big thank you to Bill, Bree, Brendan, Grant, Lisa, Mog, Dan, and Paula. Thank you so much, and here's the show. Hey, welcome to 185 A Tales from the Mind Boat, the slow-moving boat ride inside the never vast oceans of my mind. This is Trav Nash speaking, and thank you very much for listening to this episode. I really do appreciate it. In today's show, it's all about control, and sometimes the lack of it that I have, and how that scares the hell out of me. So it's a good show, and all you need to do is sit back, relax, consider how vast all things really are as we set sail. So, do you want to go round again? Asked this ride operator as he held on to the metal safety rail. It was this man, more than likely in his late 20s, but it was hard to tell due to his bright purple uniform and cap that made him look more like a jockey than someone who works at Luna Park. His eyes were bloodshot and he stared right through me, like this is a question he has to ask and has asked so many times. He no longer cares about the answer. It's all just one smooth robotic reaction. No matter what I choose, it will never matter to him. He's as high as I am, I thought to myself, and tried to hide this by turning away from him, and sat back in my seat and suddenly lost the power of speech, and all I can give him was a nod of my head. He understood this as he immediately closed the gate again with a metallic ring that reverberated for a few seconds, followed by the sound of two plastic objects linking into one another. The stoned ride operator walked away on the dirty metal walkway and stopped for a moment and checked all his pockets. As he did this, I realized what a contrast his outfit was to the looming dark clouds that had conquered the horizon and now threatened to rain, even inside this magical, affordable realm of Luna Park. He plucked something from his pocket that I thought was a key, and it must have been what he was looking for, as he walked to the little panel of buttons and dials, like some kind of cheap prop that you would find in a starship cabin in a cheap Star Wars ripoff from the 70s. He made some announcement into a flimsy microphone stick that wobbled as he spoke into it. The microphone tried to make sense of what he was saying, but all that came out of the speakers was a distorted garble where every second word cut out. It wouldn't have mattered anyway, because the first chords of Van Halen's Jump played at ridiculous volumes from every speaker around the spider ride. A grinding of gears squealed out like they're in terrible pain as the ride began to come to life. I was one of 8 crammed into this little black car attached to the 8 legs of the spider, a cartoonish, silly symphony-esque, ugly spider face that had a slightly tilted top hat and would leer down at me with this half-crazed, half-devious smile. As the ride made its first complete rotation, I noticed I was the only one left riding this ride. Since the storm clouds loomed over our head, it seemed to me that many have fled to dry areas of this great city. I'm not sure how long I've been on this ride for, but long enough it seems for no longer knowing how much time has slipped away from me. After its second rotation, the ride span faster, and the cars glided up and down in tiny invisible rainbow paths around the edges of the platform. This world around me became a blur of paint splatters, lights and shades, that screeched across my peripheral vision. The whirling of the air it's cutting through, and the spluttering engine that kept the whole thing turning, soon became out of sync with the beat coming from Van Halen's third chorus of Jump. The wind here is sea-kissed and extra salty. These dark clouds sneak up while I whirl in this mechanical hurricane. Raindrops try to sneak in, but can't seem to get their timing right. I just sit back and let all these senses enjoy it while it lasts. This feeling of being set free, no longer bound to the earth, no longer static in one place. I found a new type of controlled loss of control. I can spin safely in this fixed rotation. I know that I am now locked inside this rusted metal car with metal chains and doors that are still attached to the leering spider. A symbol for this ride that seems to me like a false prophet that promised you so much freedom, but this freedom is restricted and runs on a set pathway, and everyone just experiences the same experience. Although I do try my best to enjoy what I can, what makes this experience unique to me is the light slapped to my face of a combination of G-force and the sea breeze that runs off my cheek and combs through my hair. The flashes of old faded carnival awnings and the rickety wooden support beams of the roller coaster that travels around the fringes of the small park blur into one single image. Seagulls save their energy as they spread their wings out and suspend and hover in the strong winds that are gaining more strength. The white froth of the crashing waves as they finally reach land and retreat back into the sea again. I imagine in my head the ride breaking and this car being detached from the great spider's grasp and being launched out over the wall and into the sea, only to be thrown back to land again. And thinking about this more, I was secretly wishing for this to happen. But it never does. This ride is set and locked into place. Even the coming storm won't stop the spider from filling its one very specific and only mission. The ride peaks on its 6th rotation, and then it starts to slow down and gracefully plummets back to Earth again. The fresh sea air that was pounding my face is no longer looking for a fight, and the world around me becomes clearer and more identifiable. The ride forces me back down to Earth again. This false sense of freedom I had felt for those brief moments are now losing shape and transforming into memories that live in strange streets of my mind. The side of me is kinda glad it's all over. I fear having no control more than I fear anything else. As much as I rage against formality and tradition that I've done for many years, I still try and work within a framework that keeps my mind from wandering too far off track. I don't want to lose it. I fear losing it. I worry about being another dribbling old man alone in a room in a nursing home, wheeled in, plugged into tubes and a beeping machine, then having the door closed behind me, lost forever, somewhere that nobody will even bother to find me. There is so much that I have grown to fear. The what-ifs have far too many answers, and there is little to suggest that nothing is implausible until it happens. It wasn't long ago I would fear places like this, fear these rides, the people, the whole atmosphere. The fact that all of these rides look like they can break down or cause an accident at any hour of the day. But now I've pushed myself to climb inside the spider ride, as I'm flung around like a tea towel in a washing machine, all to prove to myself that not everything is a trap, to snare and humiliate me. There was nothing to fear, but only once you're in it. Once it's happening, there's no going back. It's only as a passive observer can you begin to imagine all the thousands of ways that things can go horribly wrong. The panic can sometimes motivate me, if I'm not frozen in fear already. I might just realize that I've already stepped out of my comfort zone, and I might as well break on through to the other side. It may not be a big deal to ride such a placid ride, but for me at that time, it was quite a profound revelation. That I can do this, and also that I can keep doing it with a little help from my all-day pass that I wasted the last of my money until I get paid next. I began to put things into perspective of all the things that I've ever done that shocked me that I ever did or do again at some point without too much thought. The spider ride made a final slow rotation, almost as if it was being turned by the wind itself. It finally came to a stop where the ride operator was waiting for me at the cage door. This time he didn't even bother to open the door. He just asked, "Do you want to go again?" I kept looking forward in a daydream, but my hand raised with a finger swirled around, imitating the rotation of the spider ride. The man just nodded and walked away, holding his hands out, looking shocked that the dark clouds are already beginning to leak. The ride began to start up again with another splutter of the motor. Paradise City's opening chords began to play over the broken speakers, and I found myself lost in around the fringes as I span in a locked orbit of thoughts, flashing lights, and cold winter rain. I can't let it go. I can't do it. I can't just close my eyes and plummet. Everything I do these days has some kind of mental pep talk of myself, weighing up what is the point anymore, and honestly I don't have much of an answer. It seems too much is out of my hands. Powerless to make a great change. Things make little sense, and the few things that do are not widely known or even accepted how valuable they really are. Rapid change comes with the new and improved. It comes with upgrades and updates and staying up late waiting for the official release. It's a constant subscription to a service that keeps you connected to something. Anything that can take your mind off the stresses of trying to keep up, running as fast as you can and never seeming to make any real distance, while others effortlessly glide between gaps and appear not to be fazed by the unknown horizon that might as well be a giant question mark that we're all running towards. I can't give up this feeling that there is something horribly wrong, something terrible is about to happen, how this can't last because nothing good ever does. If you try and hold something in place, you are essentially killing it from ever truly growing and moving in its natural order of all things. Like a machine that cannot alter how it was originally programmed. You have to keep within its set programming, but there are always ways around the limitations, but primarily you can only work with the hardware you came with. I came with an overly sensitive sense of dread, this feeling that I don't really belong anywhere, and everyone knows this. I grew up with doomsday cults and the threat of nuclear war, where the media almost sadistically wanted the world to end, so we don't have to keep asking how long do we have to keep this up for. It's hard to be motivated to excel when you are told you're not equipped to even try. And besides, there is little time left to achieve anything great. I learnt what retreat meant early. I found out that I can build better worlds in my head, and within these worlds I can feel at ease, and a full sense that I may be able to alter the course of my life for the better. But there were no breaks, no obvious escapes, and little time to really sleep and dream of better states of being. Nightmares spilled out of my ears and corrupted the world around me, and of course I thought all of this was my fault. The era of panic and doom was a constant news update. Things were always on the brink of escalation all over the world, and sometimes it could be hard to put it into perspective when I walked out to the front of the house of our neighborhood and found it still and silent, except for the rumble of trucks passing one another on the main road beyond the trees and footpath. I didn't want to believe that TV can lie to you to sell advertising space, that adults lie because they don't think you can handle the harsh truths, that parents and teachers may lie because they feel like this is the only way to get you to learn a lesson, is to trick you into it. The shroud over this world was lifted, and the first signs of my cynical and jaded version of myself was killing off that older version of me. The faster this world spun in rotation around the sun, the more I became ashamed of my inability to blend into the herd, or have any of the skills that I've learnt on anybody's list of something that's admirable. I tried desperately hard to be this better version of myself that talks and walks and acts like somebody normal, someone who doesn't stand out and can't be openly ridiculed and actually belongs somewhere with others. My mind was locked in this continuous loop. It was always questioning if I should even answer the age-old question, what's the point? I still feel like this, but I hope that I become a little more self-aware when I'm self-sabotaging. I just wanted to be grounded. I feared floating away. I don't want people to really see who's underneath this, because I'm not too sure myself, and I assumed it's something worse than what was originally on the surface. I feel like I need strict boundaries, otherwise things can go off the rails far too easy. If I lose my mind, maybe I'll never get it back this time. Because I anticipate the worst case scenario, pull it through invisible windows to manifest and become real, and go exactly as I unconsciously planned. A professional victim who can identify someone who would pity me for my shortcomings rather than someone who can see any true value I still have that makes me unique. In a lot of ways, we design the life around us. We build a shelter from the world that's discarded us because it's so complicated and troubling. It's always best to resort back to a herd mentality where you're only surrounding yourself with the same broken and damaged reflections of yourself, where nobody gets better because the pain is mollycoddled and treated like an identity trait more than something that can be used as a palette of tools that can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. Locked in an endless cycle and repeating days will only turn into overlapping of weeks, months, and then years. The walls I built around myself were built to protect me during adolescence, but today they still seem to stand, even as I'm approaching 40 years. I want to let it go, and I want to break those walls down. I want to try again and expand the chance of all possibilities. With more choices comes more freedom, but also a huge chance you can make the wrong decision. One more mistake and that freedom will be taken away forever. So I become trapped in my own head with a mind that wants out. It never felt like there was any synergy between the two. It always felt like two incompatible devices stuffed in the wrong packaging. So I want freedom from the absurdity that seems to be accepted as normal now. I want peace from violence, of the violent and aggressive minds that can no longer control themselves and long to control others. I need a machine that can sort through my daily thoughts and throw out the ones that don't matter and keep the ones that are useful. I just want the nonsense to somehow make sense again. I don't know if it ever did, but I would like to believe that there was once one unified idea that kept us moving forward, constantly pushing for change, to burn down those antiquated dead gods and their mansions and jet planes. The loud screaming voices need to take a step back and let the meek and quiet throw their perspective into the mix. These are the kinds of people who stand from the outside looking in. They know there is no definitive right answer, right side, right way, or the right word. There never can be. This world rotates regardless. Stars will burn out and die. One day all of this will be darkness, and no trace of any of us will ever be found ever again. The vast empty space out there is something we can't even comprehend. And it's so easy to lose yourself in a garbage truck of self-pity and a swamp of bad memories that pull you down like quicksand. There is so much more to any of us though, bigger than any building that some tycoon builds and slaps his name on it, bigger than any wars between gods and their followers. We are but a blip in something that is so much bigger than we could ever imagine. Because there's still mysteries yet to be solved, problems that someone will finally solve, and a new good idea will arise and change this world forever. It took a lot of years to push myself out of my head and begin again to try and understand myself and the world around me. I try to listen to others' thoughts on the way things are turning out and forge in my own state of mind on important issues that are bigger than any problem that I ever thought was holding me back. I've been sleepwalking for decades. I have very little vivid memories of all that was, and only now, I think, I'm finally breaking the spell of not participating in the great change that is happening right now. Whatever had wounded me did not kill me. I'm still here, I'm still crawling, moving forward, waiting to understand, wanting to grow and reach some kind of peace within and without myself. Problems I burdened myself with were graves of opportunities that I gave up too soon. I laid down and stopped fighting for a change, and regret stings if I dwell on it too much. I want to regain the control and steer myself back on track again, to use all that I've learned over the years to construct something amazing that may just help another. I don't want to let go, and I shouldn't have to. I don't want to lose control of my life again, and peace in my mind and in my heart. So that's it for another week. Thanks again for listening. I really do appreciate it. And sorry that it's a little bit late than normal. I had to go to the doctor in between editing this episode. But thanks for listening. If this is your first time listening and you like what you hear, then you should like and subscribe on the very device you're using. Leaving a review on Apple Music. I keep saying iTunes, but apparently it's Apple Music. Really helps out. Sharing this on Facebook and Twitter would be amazing, or just telling someone, recommending it if you like this episode or an episode before. I really do appreciate it, and thanks to all the people that have already done this. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter just by searching for Tales from the Mindboat Podcast. Theme music for this podcast is composed by Tim Weird, and you can listen to his music right now on SoundCloud just by searching for Tim Weird Sounds. Or you can also find his albums on Bandcamp, where you can pay whatever you feel those fantastic albums are worth. And I highly recommend that you do. This episode was written, read, produced, edited by me, Trav Nash, and you're welcome. So that's it for another week. Thank you very much for listening. Again, I really do appreciate it. You are awesome. I hope you're doing well and you have a good week. I want you to look after yourself. Till next week, stay safe. And as always, peace.